We look around, we have so many wonderful programs in our community that help people that live in poverty. Why are people still living in poverty? Must be something they're doing wrong. But when our volunteers walk with the people that live in poverty, they learn how hard it is to get ahead once you're stuck.
I don't think poverty looks like one thing or the other. I mean, we've run into several families that they qualify as being poverty, but I don't think they look any different necessarily on the outside than any other family.
I think that when volunteers get an opportunity to see our clients in this moment of their lives where they're struggling, there may be what may be a bump in the road for somebody with a middle income is a pure crisis for somebody in the lower, kind of somebody struggling in poverty. These are people that we pass on the street whose children go to school with our kids and who want to get jobs working around us. So we're able to help them for just this little bit and supplement what they're eating at home. And so recognizing that they have a lot in common with these individuals, that their children are just as cute, that they have the same aspirations, that they were frustrated by their boss that day or whatever it is. I think that when we get opportunities to meet others in that moment, then we recognize their humanness, and it's much easier to form that connection, but also to feel changed yourself in that moment.
A lot of the kids that we serve come from situations that are more transient, and they have adults that are coming in and out of their lives. It's part of the agreement that we make with our volunteers that they come back consistently, because the way that you're going to reach our youth the best way is by consistently showing up, and they start to build a trusting relationship with you. Sometimes that's one of the healthiest or most positive relationships that they're going to form with an adult is in our clubs, with our staff, with our volunteers.
I hope that our volunteers are comfortable challenging themselves a little bit with the activities that they take advantage of, and working with girls that they may not have a relationship with or know their community that they're coming from, and making connections with girls that have a different background. So we really work on that with our volunteers about understanding diversity, understanding other cultures.
I always tell our volunteers and staff that we're probably the most consistent part of their day, or one of them. So there's a great responsibility in that to handle it appropriately and to get to know them and inspire them so that the child knows you're there to help.
Just coming through the door is the biggest step, and once you come in, I think that you'd be very surprised about how much you would get out of it. A lot of times the volunteers come in thinking that they're going to help a child and really help them be successful, and then a lot of times what I hear volunteers say is that they come to me and say, I didn't realize how much this is actually enjoyable for myself.
I mean, a lot of times when you're volunteering, you want to inject your energy into a space. What you don't expect is what you get out of it, which is a lot of those relationships with kids. You get to see them grow, you get to see them learn, you get to see them trust.
You guys ready for this long ride?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. I was ready last year. I was ready when I was.
If I had enough money to pay for staff to cover everything in all the agencies, I wouldn't want to do it, because volunteers offer this unique perspective. They're totally donating their time. So if someone's coming in and saying, you're important enough that I would give my time, that says a lot to the people we work with.
A lot of times volunteers feel a little bit self-conscious because they're not sure exactly how to develop a relationship with the clients they're working with, because they will have just met them, or they themselves as volunteers aren't quite sure of their role. And my advice to you with that is just to make sure that you're sincere in who you are. If you feel like smiling because the client said something funny, then smile. If you need to point out something that they need to do differently because they're not following the rules, then do that.
We know volunteers come from a lot of places and they volunteer for a lot of reasons. Poverty isn't very visible in our area. We're dealing with more rural poverty, which is different from urban poverty. We have trailer parks, we have things out in the country that you may never see and don't look necessarily like poverty. But when you're in a restaurant, when you're in some kind of a retail store, probably some of the people that are waiting on you are raising families on that income, which isn't much more than minimum wage.
Being in tune with the clients and their experience of the pantry is very important. So if you see a client struggling with understanding how many of what item they can select, or maybe what's the label on the item is, maybe they can't read, or maybe they've left their glasses at home, or they can't afford glasses. So you need to look for those opportunities to be helpful to them without making assumptions or making a judgment.
So a car wreck can start out being what might be an inconvenience for someone with enough resources can end up causing someone else to be homeless, because without a car, they don't have a way to work, they don't have a way to get groceries. If they can't get to work, they may get fired, and if they can't pay their rent, they may lose their housing. And if they lose their housing and they have children and they can't figure out a way to support their family, then it's not impossible that their children would be removed from their home to be somewhere where they could get the resources they need. So what is an inconvenience for me can start a downward spiral that is just really non-stoppable and catastrophic for someone that lives in poverty.
Circumstances that have put people in those positions, some are working really hard to get out of them, some are family traditional cycles that don't know how to get out of them, but they're all different. And they're all fighting different challenges.
But if I had always been operating out of a crisis mode, I would choose my words very quickly and shoot them out like bullets. And that's more in line with a lot of the folks you'll see. So wordy explanations that are logical often aren't real helpful. It's not so much the knowledge you're bringing, it's the way people feel after they've interacted with you. But feeling good is very helpful for people that don't feel good a lot of the time.
The biggest surprise on the outset, probably for a volunteer experiencing this for the first time, is how in some cases the innocence of the children is gone. They've been exposed to so many things that you are going to see and hear children behave in a way that you're not accustomed to seeing and hearing them behave.
It's no different than in a classroom. If there's a substitute teacher coming in, typically those in the class are going to test the limits. They're going to test you with their behavior, they're going to test you with the vocabulary that they have, they're going to test you with their stories and, maybe even physical. I can beat up so-and-so. Figuring out which stories are true and which stories aren't, and when is this being blown out of proportion just to see what I'll do is definitely important. And as an adult and a volunteer, you kind of got to feel your way through that the first few times, and that's again where the staff can be a resource. And I would rather you ask and be sure than to just assume that it's false. So, go on the side of caution.
The positive side of that is that these children are extremely talented. So once you focus on a child and what the needs are of that child, it allows you to really be able to handle the noise and the situations that might come about.
I think it could be a little overwhelming, a little daunting sometimes. It seems loud and vibrant when you walk in. Sometimes people might think it's chaotic, but there's definitely method to the madness.
Some of our girls are really dealing with instability at home. By the time they finally get to us, they're comfortable and they're able to let some of their emotions out, which may sometimes mean that they scream or they get upset faster or they hide. So our volunteers should understand, and we hope they understand, that if there's ever a time when a situation is uncomfortable or they just don't know what to do, any of the staff here are trained to deal with girls and those kinds of issues. And there's always somebody that can kind of, that knows how to handle that particular girl's issue and help her get back into the activity or separate from the activity and go do something else.
In every school, you don't know what attitude or experience that the child has had prior to coming into school that day. And so that's kind of what we're here for as a staff, to handle those situations as they arise. At no time do we expect our volunteers to deal with behavior situations or anything of that nature. So if volunteers are concerned that they're going to be dealing with behavior or a kid that's upset, that's not their responsibility. That's what we are here for, and we can speak with the child. A lot of times we use those situations as learning experiences for the kids, because that's what it is. It's more for the experience for both the volunteer and the child, and it's more for a positive one. So if it's not just a good day for that kid, then we'll find something else to do, or we'll be able to talk with the child.
The way we describe it, anything to you that seems unsettling in your core, that something that just doesn't sit right, you have to take the responsibility to kick that up the line, inform other people, inform staff. Having that relationship with the staff member there is important, and understanding that you have a resource as a volunteer to help guide you through difficult situations.
It's really cool because our staff really takes pride in communicating what our general rules are, which are being caring, respectful, safe, responsible. And so the kids that come into our facility know that if they do something that maybe isn't what we ask them to do, if it doesn't fit into those categories, we have a conversation with them. We're always using that language. Was that caring? What could you do to be more responsible?
What we realize is that when we're matter of fact about the rules, we reduce any sort of form of judgment for our clients and make sure that they feel good and understand that the rule is not specific to them or on somebody's whim, but it's just kind of the way things are.
Our families, particularly if they've been raised in generational poverty, may not know the steps to get to where they want to be, but the dreams that they have for their children are the dreams that we all have for our children. And what you're doing by being there is helping them realize that they can achieve those dreams, that those dreams are important, and gives them options and opportunities to move toward those dreams that they might not have.
We cannot do the things that we do without our volunteers. Our kids truly love one-on-one time, and volunteers are about the only way that we can truly provide that one-on-one time.
The kids are going to impact this community one way or the other. So the more positive that you can inject with them, the more relationships that you can build, provide positive role modeling for them and help them see their potential to contribute to society in a positive way. The more you can do that, the more it's going to positively impact all of the community.
The work that you do is vital, and the way you leave people feeling is the foundation of what makes a good volunteer.
If we can come together as one community to help all of our students, it's only going to make our community better.
Our goal in all of our interventions is to help our clients reach self-sufficiency so that they can walk on their own. Perhaps they won't need us in the future. If they reach that point, then we can just walk beside them.
One world free from poverty, one soul.